Welcome back. Today we are tackling something absolutely critical: security in Microsoft Fabric data warehouse. And security can sound boring or overwhelming, but here is the thing: it's actually fascinating once you understand it. Plus, it's what stands between your sensitive data and potential registers. So let's dive in. Picture a scenario. You have built this amazing data warehouse filled with customer information, financial data, and business intelligence. It's powerful and it's valuable. But here is the question: who should see what? Should everyone see everything? Absolutely not. Should you lock everything down? Well, then nobody can do their jobs. This is the security balancing act. So, Microsoft Fabric solves this with what we call a multi layered security model. Think of it like an onion, multiple layers, each providing a different level of protection and control. And the beautiful things, these layers works together seamlessly. You have got workspace permission at the top level, then item level access, and finally granular SQL level permissions. Let's unpack each of these. So dynamic data masking, let's start with something really clever. Um, so imagine you have a table with customer phone numbers and email address. Some users need to know that the data exists and work with the records, but they don't need to see the actual value. That's where masking comes in. And here, what's the brilliant about it? The data is still exactly the same in the database. You are not encrypting it or removing it. Instead, when certain users query the table, they see masked version, like not the actual phone number, they can see some other format. Then there are different like masking types. Like default mask, which is great for things like phone numbers. There's an email mask, which shows the first letter and the domain structure but hides the actual address. And there is even a partial mask, where you can specify exactly how much to show, like showing the first letter of a name followed by something X. So the really powerful part, you apply this mask when you create the table. They are always there, always working, but then you can grant specific users the unmask permissions when they genuinely need to see the real data. It's security by default with flexibility when needed. Then it's coming like row level security. So this is where things get really interesting. So imagine from a table, for example, where we are going to use sales table. So sales table data for all your sales representatives, but you don't want every sales rep seeing everyone else's sales data. So you can define data for users to users. So that means you are locking some rows for other users where you are allowing some rows for this particular, like for a particular users. Now it's coming column level security. So if you think that row level security controls which records you can see, column level security controls which fields you see. Maybe you have an order table with credit card informations. Your shipping team needs to see customer ID and address, but they absolutely should not see credit card numbers. So that means you are giving column level security for that credit card details. So we'll go through this all this into lab. Now it's coming granular SQL permissions. So this is where you get very specific control using standard SQL commands like grant, deny, and revoke. These are traditional database security commands and they works beautifully in Fabric. Now, there is also something important about deny operation here. So it's powerful in most permission systems. If you grant someone access, they have it. But if we deny, that actually overrides everything. And other thing is coming like thing that you might work in workspace roles to control who can even see the data warehouse exist level or lakehouse level, so that we can control even that one. So now let's go through the lab to get a real experience with all this now. In this lab, we are going to do secure a Microsoft Fabric data warehouse. So Microsoft Fabric permissions and Granular SQL permissions work together. So Granular SQL permissions work together to govern warehouse access and users permissions. So in this exercise, we are going to secure data using Granular permissions, column level security, row level security, and dynamic data masking. So let's start that one. So here I have connected to Microsoft Data Fabric. And very first thing that we need for our lab is to create a workspace. So let's create a workspace. So click on workspace, new workspace. And then under advanced section, select that, make sure that fabric capacity is enabled, click on apply. So new empty workspace is ready here. Now create a warehouse. So click new item. You can select here warehouse. Select the sample warehouse. Create a workspace, then create a data warehouse. Okay. So select warehouse. Give a warehouse name. Click on create. So dynamic data masking rules are applied on individual columns at the table level, so all queries are affected by the masking. Users who do not have explicit permission to view the confidential data will see the masked values. So here, select the TSQL tag. So we are going to create a table and inserting few rows and then query that tables. It's executing. So there are four types of masks, like default one. There is a email one, there is a random and custom string. So in this exercise, we will go through like default mask, an email mask, and a custom string masks. So you can see the table has got 3 rows. So if in like user who created this one, owner, as a owner, he will can see the um, data without like mask format. So as a user one, we can see the unmasked data. Now let's connect to the workspace. Here is the manage access. Click that one, manage access. Then search for users, separate users. And adding that user as a viewer. Click add. So this user has been added as a viewer, user 2. Now let's do a private session. Connect with user 2 who has got, let me connect to Fabric. So here I have connected to Fabric, Microsoft Fabric with the user 2 who has got only view privileges. So let's go to workspace. Data warehouse sections. And click on SQL query. Now, if I select that customer table, so now you see here, because this user has not been granted unmasked permissions, so the data is written for the first name. If you see here, phone number and email is masked format, because those are created with a mask in the create table statement. So if you go back to our first users, here when you create that one, we use that masked. To unmask that one, we can use SQL like this one, unmask on that table and to the username. So right now I don't, because we are going to more on this other level security. So let's do that one. We are going to do that now. Role level security. Open a new SQL tab. For this lab perspective, I'm not going to run execute unmask for now. So role level security can be used to limit access to rows based on the identity. And so here we are creating a separate table like in cells, and we are going to 6 rows of data and giving the 3 rows for each user. So we have got 2 users, so each user can see only 3 rows from this table. So here is the first 3 for user 2, second 3 for user 1. So let's first execute this one. So it's succeeded. Now here I have connected with user 1. So you see users 1 can only see these 3 bracket, wheel and sit. So it cannot see other product. So now if we execute, if we go back to the another user, that is sales No. So you can see only other three. Now we'll test apply row level security. Row level security can be used to limit access to rows based on the identity or role of the user executing a query. So in this exercise, we will restrict access to rows by creating a security policy and a security predicate defined as an inline table valued functions. So you'll get more understanding by going through the lab. So let's first create a new table. Click new SQL query window. So we are giving 3 rows for the user 2 and 3 rows for users 1. So if I select now the user, one can see all the data. If you look here, that when I query sales tables, it can see all the data. Similarly, if we go to user 2, here on user 2, and if we execute, it can see all 6 rows now. So now we are going to create a new schema, a security predicate uh, to define as function and a security policy. So let's go to user 1 session, open a new SQL query window. So here, create a separate schema to hold the row level security objects, so RLS. And then we are going to create a predicate evaluate to true or false. So if returns 1, that row is accessible, otherwise row is not accessible. So creating that function, and then we are going to create a security policy has a filter predicate. So let's execute this one. So it has been succeeded now. Now if I go to under schema that we have created, that RLS, and we have created the functions, we can see that functions has been created. So if we go back, we can go back here. From here, we can see that user is user 1. You can also execute just to make sure who is the user, to see this select user name. You can see that user 1. Now if I select from the table, you can see it's allowed to see only a 4, 5, 6 order ID. Now if we go to user 2 session, you can see user 2, and it can only see the first three order ID. So you have successfully completed that row level security. Now we'll go through the column level security, which allows which user can access specific columns in a table. And these are implemented by operations, grant and deny statements in a table, and specifying the list of columns. So let's do that one. For that, open a new SQL query window. So we are going to create a order table and inserting some values. So let's execute that one. Let's create table permissions and denied. But we have created table before. Let me use that. Maybe underneath DB. Let me resolve these issues first. Oh, I got that one because I have connected with user 2. Let's go back to user 1. So here I'm user 1. Open a new SQL query window and then copy the code. So we are getting our orders tables, inserting 3 rows and then selecting the values. So here you can see all those orders. Now if I go to other users, now in a separate SQL query window, so this user can see those values from that orders table. Now put some column level restriction. Here that denies select on orders table for that user. So let me get the user details. So for second user, I'm restricting that it cannot access the credit card information. So this information. I think I got the wrong username. So let me go back to username is wrong. think this quote. So it looks good. Now, if we go to user two sessions, and last time we could see the values. So now we have restricted to um, this credit card, but order ID and customer ID should be fine, because let's execute this fast. We are getting a message that credit card has got some restriction denied. So therefore, but we did not restrict the other two columns. So if we select other two columns, so you can see that user can see other two columns. So we have successfully completed column level security. Now we'll do little more, like Fabric has a permission model that allows you to control access to data at workspace level. So let's do some standard SQL, like DCL commands, grant, deny, revoke. So let's do that part. So create a new, let's go back to user one session. New SQL query tab. We are going to create a procedure here, sp print message, and then we are also going to create after the table and inserting some values. So let's execute this. So you can see the values here. And now if we execute this into user 2 session, create a new SQL query window. We can see the values. Go back to first window, user 1 session, and here going to use like deny select permissions on the table for a user, like thing that for the other user we have got second user 2, and grant execute permissions on the procedure. So copy this user. So you have deny on the table, but execute on that procedures to see what's going to happen. So you will get understanding. So now we go back to user 2 sessions. Here user 2, and execute. Now right now we got the data. Now if we execute this time, then we are getting a message that select permissions on based on this policy you see was denied. So we have successfully completed all those different scenarios that we can apply uh, for security perspective in Microsoft Fabric Data Warehouse. That's all for this lab. You can clean your workspace. See you in next lab.